What's going on, guys? It is Monday, December the 14th, and this is my news radar. So over the last couple of weeks, we've talked quite a bit about Apple's jump to using their brand new M1 systems on a chip, the M1 Silicon, which basically, big deal was that it moved Apple's stuff from X86 to ARM, which provides much better battery life and much better efficiency, which I guess feeds into the battery life thing. Apple's implementation of using M1 to do ARM has been incredibly impressive, and that's drawn a lot of comparisons from people on the internet as well as from myself to what Microsoft has done with their ARM offerings. So like the Surface Pro X is essentially a Surface Pro device, but it is running a Qualcomm SQ processor, and it is running the ARM version of Windows. So one of the biggest problems with the ARM version of Windows is that you can't run X64 apps. So any app that hasn't been compiled for ARM that is a 64-bit app just isn't going to run, and unfortunately that's quite a few different apps. Well, the good news is that we now have the actual emulation we've been waiting for, X64 emulation. It is now available on Windows on ARM. So this is something that has come to testers who are using the Windows Insider Dev channel. Now the downside here is that you are using a build of Windows that is definitely not necessarily ready for prime time. This is a dev build. There could be some bugs, there could be some problems, but look, this is just something you're just going to have to deal with in order to get X64 apps running. Microsoft says you're going to be able to do things like play games like Rocket League or run productivity apps like Autodesk's Sketchbook. So this is obviously a pretty big deal for Windows on ARM and for the Surface Pro X in particular. This opens up the door to a whole lot of other apps. I can't wait to see how well these apps perform. If any of you guys have a Surface Pro X and have been using this emulation, I'd love to know down in the comments how the performance has been for you. So it looks like the Galaxy S21 leaks that we've been seeing are only beginning to become more and more numerous. We've got a couple of leaked images here that was tweeted out by Ice Universe on Twitter. Random Stuff 2 is the YouTube channel that actually posted these things to begin with, and what it shows is that a lot of these leaks have been correct. The bezels here on the S21 devices are in fact going to be as thin as what we have been seeing. He also does a benchmark on Geekbench for this S21, and it provides a pretty impressive score there, which, although it's unclear to me whether or not that was running the newest build of the Exynos processor or if that is running the Snapdragon 888. I'm going to assume it's the 888 because the performance is really good. Although the Exynos processors apparently are going to take a huge step forward in this next generation. But if you look at what the S20 did, single core of 845 versus 1115 there, and then a multi-core of a little over 3,000, best case scenario 3,300. So we are seeing a pretty good uplift in performance, whether this is the new Exynos or the Snapdragon 888. And we know from some other leaks that Korea and Europe will be getting the Exynos 2100, which, again, I keep hearing. Look, I've dumped on the Exynos processors a lot in the past. The video processing, the battery life has not been where it needs to be. I'm hearing from a lot of these leaks that the Exynos 2100 is supposed to be quite a bit better than the prior Exynos chip, so maybe it won't be that big of a deal. In the US of A, you are going to get that Snapdragon 888, and I would probably want that version. So if you buy the unlocked version in the US, make sure you know that the 2100 is as good as people are saying it's going to be. The S21 is going to have 8 gigs of RAM, 128 gigs of UFS storage, although there is a 256 gigabyte variant. S21 Plus can bump you up to 12 gigs of RAM, which is a ton. And then there's an S21U with another 12 gigs of RAM and then a 16 gig variant as well. This thing's going to be your uber premium S21. Now, just in case you haven't seen what the backs of these new S21 devices are supposed to look like, here you go. There's a couple of leaked images that have come out, and honestly, I really like the appearance of these, especially this blue on goldish kind of thing is quite daring, quite an interesting look. I think it looks pretty good. I think they're doing a much better job of hiding the camera bump with this style. Now, there is still going to be a camera bump. You're not going to have a 108 megapixel sensor without a camera bump. When you're looking at these two, you'll notice that the S21 Ultra here that has the extra camera does appear to have a curved screen rather than the flat screen on the standard S21 there. And there are rumors of up to a 10x optical zoom on the S21 Ultra. That would be absolutely incredible. And I mean, look, you can see the periscope camera right there. So who knows, maybe that's actually a thing that's going to happen. I can't wait to see more about the S21 devices and what kind of crazy camera tech they're going to pull off. So let's talk for a moment here about another phone that has leaked pretty much in full. This is the OnePlus 9 5G. Phone Arena has the details here. Gigantic double camera there, which is really strange looking. I'm kind of curious as to what they're actually doing there. We're going to be looking at a 120 hertz screen here with HDR enabled. That's pretty, I mean, that's high end. I don't want to say that's normal, but it's not super crazy. It's what we've been getting for a while, 20:9 aspect ratio. So if you're into very long, very tall phones, the OnePlus 9 is going to be a good option there. Looks like we're going to get that Snapdragon 888 in there with Android 11, of course, ready to go out of the box. Now, the camera specifications are still unknown from the leaks that I have seen, but those two cameras are huge. So expect a high megapixel count. Then there's a much smaller lens at the bottom, so perhaps a macro or something like that. Perhaps they're going to be handling something like the telephoto zoom effect by simply having a really big sensor and then digitally cropping in, and you can get quite a bit done there. You're not going to be competing with a 10x optical zoom in the Galaxy S21 Ultra by doing something like that, but you can get pretty close. If you're wondering why the OnePlus logo is not that, or is not there, that is the Never Settle logo, which is what they use on a lot of their prototype devices. So this does look pretty legit. You do see the Ultra Shot branding there. I'm really curious. I really want to know what is going on with these cameras. I do like the overall look of the phone. This is pretty big and pretty gaudy, but I don't know, there's something about the two giant lenses that just makes me curious about what is going on in this device. So when we talk about folding devices, there's a couple of companies that I think a lot of us can't wait to see what they do with folding devices. It's Apple and it is Google. Well, we've heard rumors from Apple for a while. There are even patents from about a year and some change ago where they were apparently experimenting with a dual screen device, something that would maybe bring you into the mindset of the Surface Duo, but with Apple behind it, which I'm really interested in. And there may be a video coming kind of expounding upon that idea, but Google is the other one. And while I wish that I had more to share about what Google's folding phone might look like, we do have a report here from an insider in the display industry here tweeting, not only are we going to see 3 folding phones from Samsung, 4 from Oppo, Vivo, and Xiaomi, but also 1 model from Google. He also does say no Z Fold Lite. I'm seeing a lot of conflicting reports there. Some say yes Z Fold Lite, some say no Z Fold Lite. Who knows what's going on there? But I think if we stop and we focus in on what Google could be doing here, in August there were reports that Google was working on a Pixel codenamed Passport, which is expected at the end of 2021. And I think that something like that is honestly, whatever Google does is good for the entire Android ecosystem because they push things forward, they polish things, and they create the direction that I think a lot of other phone companies do follow. And they tend to kind of do things their own way a lot of the time, for better or for worse. Who can forget the giant bathtub notch in the Pixel 3? But at any rate, look, the Pixel phones are some of my favorite phones of all time. I would love to see what Google could do with a folding OLED. We know that Google has been working on baking folding sorts of, hooks and APIs, basically support for folding devices into Android since a little while ago, and Android 11 adds a lot to the table there. We also know that they've been experimenting with folding devices since all the way back to the Pixel 3a era, somewhere in that general proximity. So I think it's about time Google enters that market. Show them how it's done, Google. I can't wait to see what they produce in that realm. So guys, that's all the news I have for you today. Be sure to check back every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for my next news radar. And until next time, stay nerdy, my friends. If you enjoy my content, please consider becoming a Scary If Literal member. You'll get access to a whole bunch of emoticons to use with live streams and a shout out on an upcoming video. Thanks as always for your continued support.